Welcome to the GuavaVet Find Remarkable vlog, where we talk about the job of being a veterinary professional. I'm joined today by two remarkable colleagues, Cathy U'Ren, Chief Wellness Officer of the Pet Wellness Centre located on the Gold Coast of Australia, and Alison Lambert, founder of Onswitch, joining me from the United Kingdom. I'm going to ask you guys, firstly, thank you very much for joining me. I'm going to ask you guys to introduce yourselves and tell us what you do. Cathy, if we can start with you.
Sure. My name's Kath. I am, as you said, the Chief Wellness Officer and the owner of Pet Wellness Centre in Burleigh Heads. And I am perhaps a slightly unusual vet clinic owner in that I'm obviously not a big corporate, but neither am I a vet. I'm not a vet nurse. In fact, I have no clinical training whatsoever in the vet space. And so many people often ask me, why do I own a vet clinic? And it really comes down to, my history is in business, in small services business. But there was really two kind of things at play here. There was a time at the end of 2014, start of 2015, when I realized that I actually need to be my own boss. There's a lot of things. I'm a big vision, big people kind of person. I'm a natural leader. I like to achieve big things and bring people along with me as I do it. And a lot of things tend to get in your way of doing that in the corporate world, you know, shareholders, and those sorts of things. So I realized that in order for me to actually be satisfied in what I was achieving, I'd probably need to be my own boss. That was one thing. The second thing was I had a really awful experience with my own pet, with my dog. His name was Brain. He was a crazy little Boston Terrier and the absolute light of my life. And I had a really, really poor experience with a vet with him. He subsequently died, but about 1 year after we opened Pet Wellness Centre, he passed away. But he really inspired the opening of the Pet Wellness Centre, because I remember walking out of the vet clinic with my little dog, who was my entire life at the time, thinking to myself, wow, there's just got to be a better way. I didn't feel like there was anywhere that I could go that gave me all of the solutions that I need, the advice that I need to be able to be the best pet parent that I could be to this little guy who meant so much to me. And thankfully, the vet that I had gone to see was actually a very bad vet. There are very, very good.
Thankfully.
Well, I say thankfully because, you know, I talk about this a lot, and I'm not grateful that my little dog Brain died, but I'm super grateful for the experience that I had with him and the fact that he inspired the setup of Pet Wellness Centre, because his legacy lives on in the extreme level of care that we give to thousands of patients in his name. And had I not had that really awful experience with this particular vet, Pet Wellness Centre would never have come about. So, you know, it's a real shame that he had to have that experience and I had to lose him. But it's also one of those things that has inspired, you know, a greater good from that experience. So a non-vet, non-clinically trained business person decided, you know what, I'm just going to build it myself. And so I built Pet Wellness Centre entirely from a customer perspective, me being the customer, a pet owner, having some experience in business, but also I went out and spoke to people who knew a whole lot more than I did about the clinical setup of a vet clinic, to make sure that I could tick those boxes and we were going to do, you know, the best standard of medicine in a fantastic facility. But then I focused the whole customer experience around the needs of the customer, me, from my perspective. So that's how Pet Wellness Centre came to be.
Alison.
Thank you, Aubrey, and it's great to hear Cathy tell that story again, because I'm very fortunate to have been to the Pet Wellness Centre, and I can concur with everything Cathy's just said. It really is very customer experience and very customer centred. My journey, I started as a vet long time ago in the last century, after some time in practice and then some time in business, latterly with the Mars organisation. 2001, it became very apparent to me that I also needed to be the boss. To me, I share with Cathy is that feeling of being, I've got to do it my way. I'm somewhat tired of shareholder kind of influence. So started the business Onswitch then, fusing the two things I knew, which was, you know, the understanding of the customer experience and the customer marketing insights I learned from my time at the Mars organisation, which was phenomenally brilliant, and I wouldn't be here now without my time at Mars. I learned so much about you know, the understanding of why people buy things and why people don't buy things, and that whole insights piece. But I'm a vet, so I know this industry and the connections are there. So in 2001, trying to fuse the understanding of customer-centered thinking into the veterinary profession was a little bit like pushing water uphill. But it was the start of it. And when you know something is the right thing to do, you just keep going, regardless of people saying you're mad. And I'm sure Cathy can probably experience and had similar experiences as well. And the purpose in 2001 was to inspire change, create customer-centered practice so pets, horses and livestock receive best care. And the bizarre thing about this global community that we're in, this veterinary connected community of veterinary professionals and veterinary people who care, is the random connection that Cathy and I met in a room in Sydney just before she opened the practice. And you just think she was doing all the things I'm saying, you should be doing this. And she's going, I'm not mad. So that's how we met. And it's really interesting to see that at the heart of this is people you employ and people who come to you with the pets in their lives. And, you know, the debate around, you know, is it the patients, is it the people? And it's like, well, it's both, but it's always people, team and customer. So the business Onswitch works with practices around the world and animal healthcare around the world to really inspire those moments, you know, the smallest of moments that change the journey and the experience, that create a better memory, which means the patient gets an outcome. Without people, patients don't get the care they deserve. And that's the bit that we as a profession, we're very clinically centered, and we miss that the gatekeeper to care ultimately is the person that lives with that dog or cat and goes, I've got to give them meds, I've got to come back for surgery. You know?
That's what we're going to talk about today.
Well, that's it.
So thank you very much, Alison. Kath, I'm going to ask you to kick off then. Pets first or people first? Is it a dichotomy? In other words, one or the other? Can it be both?
So first of all, Alison has been instrumental in Pet Wellness Centre and me being able to do what I do. From the very first moment we met, we were right on the same page. So you're probably going to hear similar answers from Alison and I. Everything that she was just saying before is spot on. So I've got a couple of fundamental philosophies that I live by in business. The first is, if you focus on the people, the money will come. If you focus on the money, the people will go. And I have lived that in my experience, being one of the people who left and also in building businesses and building teams. In terms of vet clinic, it's really quite unique in that you've got the patient and you've got the client, and those two things are separate, right? Like my previous history was in human dental, and of course you've only got one client and patient, they're the same thing. In vet, it's different. And obviously within our clinic, when that pet is in the hospital, we're very patient first. We go way above and beyond for patient comfort because it's good for the patient, but it's also good for us. It helps us to be able to treat them, and it's good for the owner, less stress and all of those things. But ultimately what Alison said is correct. My fundamental philosophy for Pet Wellness Centre is that our obligation is not just to diagnose illness, it's to treat the patient. And you cannot treat the patient without the buy-in, the acceptance and the cooperation of the owner of that pet. So in order to actually get a patient outcome, you've got to go through the person. So ultimately—
But what about the team? You know, if we can focus on the team. Yeah. So is it the team first or the patient first?
I was just thinking about this before we started speaking, because my team is everything. But the patient, when they're in our clinic, is the number one. But I've yet to actually find a conflict between those two things. So when we are dealing with patients, you know, if it's a situation that's unsafe for the patient, then it stops. If it's a situation that's unsafe for the team member, then it stops. And I'm actually yet to find a conflict between good for team and good for patient. Ultimately, the people who come and work at Pet Wellness Centre want to do the best for the patients, and everything that we do to support that, encourage that and prioritize that actually creates a scenario where they're living their values, they're living their why every single day. So patient first and team first, I just haven't found any conflict between those two things. I think they align really well.
So for you would say that it can be both. Alison, yeah. So, you know, if you look in the literature these days, people to be healthy need to, they need to eat well, sleep well, live well. I never see that in any job ads for vets. It's always how we take care of our clients, our customers, how we take care of our patients. So I'll ask you the same thing. Vets first, people first. Can it be both, or is it one or the other?
Do you know, we haven't enough time to really talk about this because we have an hour, and you're going to edit this down, so the audience are going to hear a snippet of a bigger conversation that could be a lot bigger. One thing we've learned over 2020, and I think we a moment to pause and reflect on what veterinary teams and pet owners have gone through over the last year for many areas, and thankfully Australia got a grip on this virus pretty quickly, so Cathy's team have, I think, done the right things, but haven't had the depth of craziness that we've had here in the UK, where we genuinely have lost control of this, is that teams have still cared for patients. The patients have got that care, even when the owner hasn't been able to be, with the pet, or, at the end of life, to not be with your dog or cat at that moment. But we couldn't because of the nature of COVID. And I think this year has taught us where it's gone wrong in relationship terms. It doesn't work optimally when we're not all there. So if the team are there and the client is there and the patient is there, and it's an ecosystem, it's a continuum, that care is optimal. If we take one element away, the care isn't optimal anymore, and the communication isn't optimal. And the question's a fair question. I think it's a good question because, people have always said, look after your team and they'll look after your customers. And Richard Branson said that. And I've always had an issue with that, because you can have a really imbalanced perspective on it's all for the team, but they don't look out to the customer, and you can get your clarity of vision wrong. And it's this collaborative piece that, make it right for the people, and the people are customer and team. Make it right for the patient. We can't make it right for the patient without both. And so the answer to the question is, well, it's a long one. Let's see it from a different perspective. We're coming at this question, and I think, to be fair to you, Aubrey, you're coming at this question because it's a fair question and you're provoking us to discuss it, and I get that. Is that question is often asked by people who've got a predetermined answer in their head. It's like, well, it's obvious what's more important. We just need the client to pay the bill, so therefore we have to look after them. It's like, well, no, because your team are going to leave, and then you haven't got continuity of care, and they won't come back, and they won't like you, so you'll put your prices up because you're not getting your revenue, and you'll hit price elasticity. So that wasn't a good strategy. Oh, well, it's all about the team, and we won't think about the customer. Like, well, then it becomes a bit of a commune, and it doesn't work. In the sweet spot, it's right for people, work environment, community environment, exactly what Cathy's talking about. Is if I, as a pet owner, feel I walk into a veterinary building and someone there is compassionate and understanding and empathic, we work together collaboratively so the patient gets what's needed. Ultimately, we can't do anything for the patient without the owner involved and the team involved. You lose one of those bricks in that wall and it just falls down. So for me, what's more important? People. Without people, pets don't get stuff. So it's people and pets, but it's not team or customer. I think that yin or the yang, the either, the or, it's both and. Edward de Bono said it, it's not either or, it's both and. It's both team and both customer.
So that means it's not a dichotomy, and it actually it should be both. Now, I think what we've learned in this time, and during this pandemic, and I believe we'll see it in future, is that, going forward, is that the most human organizations will survive. And I think we see it now. So, Kath, when you look at finding new team members to join you obviously have a culture. And I define culture as people like us do things like this. Now, what is it that you look for when you look for team members that can speak to that culture?
Yeah, it's the most important thing is getting the right people, and it's extremely challenging right now because there is a vet shortage, a shocking vet shortage on the Gold Coast. I'm pretty sure it's global. I know Alison is nodding away. It's the same in the UK. And we as employers of vets need to address the key reasons that is happening. Like, that is
If we go to the evidence, and it's just picking up on what Cathy's just said there, there's some very interesting data about what people actually want. And Aubrey, you'll be familiar with some of this because we did some research for you about this. At the beginning, when GuavaVet was formed, is just looking at what people actually want from a job and looking what they actually want from a workplace today for the majority group who you are going to be looking to attract. So you're looking at that age group that are qualified in the couple of years through to maybe 10, 15, but you're not looking to attract my generation of 31 years qualified as a vet, because we've all kind of moved on a bit, and you possibly wouldn't want some of us. But for the group who you're targeting for, you know, they've got the skills, they've got them, you know, the beginning of their career, they're keen to learn, the kind of characters that you would want in your practice. What those people want is really interested in the work. Done some work for you, Aubrey, and did some work for ourselves, which was presented back at BSAVA a couple of years ago. Australian and UK, is, do you know what they value? They value time. It's not money, it's time. Time so I can do a hobby, time so I can have a guaranteed get home. You know, I don't want to be going, will I get home at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night? But I get home most of the time at 6 or 7, like they said I would. Time is really important. So that's why people like 4 days rather than 5, because they know they've got 1 day to themselves to do that thing that they do. And the other thing that came really clearly was, I need a guaranteed go home time most of the time, not all of the time. I get accidents and emergencies happen, but if I can nail 95% of the time, I get home as stated in my terms and conditions of contract. And the lunch break, the aspiration for our colleagues is, I get bloody lunch break. Come on. And if we can't nail a break in the middle of the day, if those are the two things, is guarantee me my go home time 90% of the time and guarantee me a lunch break 90% of the time. Oh, and by the way, could you pay me as well? Money isn't a big driver for this cohort. They're very purpose-led, they're very quality-led, they're very life. I have a life. I mean, I do art, I do sport, I do charity work, I do something else. They're multi-purposing their time. So that's why they like 4 days, because they've got the 5th day. And that's why they want to go home, because they want to do netball, you know. And I think if we as employers look to fix the bit they need to stay or to join or to be attracted anyway, then we need to start saying things about, you know, 95% of the time, our team go home on time. Wow.
Oh,
We're the
that's-
only practice in the
Yeah.
only practice in the world that can do that.
That's
It's a really
interesting.
powerful thing.
Yeah, that's interesting you said that. Now, Kath, when we look at the research, what makes people happy at work? And it seems, now somebody has used the abbreviation, it's the MBA, mastery, belonging, and autonomy. Now, Alison, you mentioned autonomy there. In other words, at least autonomy in the sense that I have break and I have my time, and my time is important. Mastery and belonging. So mastery is growing professionally, and belonging is being part of something. How does, Kath, what do you think of what Alison, if you want to comment on what Alison said and about those three things, mastery, belonging, and autonomy?
Yeah, so as a non-vet employer of vets, the mastery part is something that I can support. So we do unlimited CPD for our vets. There's no, you get $2,000 a year or whatever. It's whatever it is that you want to do that makes sense for Pet Wellness Centre and for you to continue to learn. We do that. And that's one thing. I mean, I think mastery comes from working with other highly qualified, highly experienced people and having an environment where it's collaborative. I know some clinics, vets, it's like they're individual little silos and they don't necessarily share. They've got their own cases, their own patients. They don't want to share. It's weird. But Pet Wellness Centre is very much an open environment where there's vets share cases. Obviously, for me, from a business perspective, it's really important that the clients and build a relationship with the centre, not just with the clinician that's treating them. Like Pet Wellness Centre is a thing. I mean, on the actual logo, it says more than just a vet, and that's not any offence to vets. Vets are fantastic, but the whole idea is that the clients connect with something that's more than just a clinician-patient relationship. So it's an environment where there's a lot of that sharing and coaching happens really naturally, organically rather than structurally. Belonging, we are, team building is my thing. So we have an environment that it's about all coming together around a mission. On the wall of the front counter at Pet Wellness Centre, it says pet wellness, human wellness, community wellness, because the reason for wellness existence is not just to treat pets. It's because we fundamentally believe that pets make people, and better people make better communities. So we have an opportunity to improve the lives of people and communities by focusing on the wellness of our pets. And everyone who's a part of Pet Wellness Centre believes that what they are doing has impact far greater than just on that patient that they are treating. And so that makes them feel belonging, not just to the centre, but to their community, to the clients and the community that we've built and that we're a part of. And as far as autonomy goes, I'm actually not a vet, so I can't be telling them how they need to, practice their craft. But again, from a team perspective, autonomy is so important for everyone, not just for the vets. And I manage the clinic by a process of simple rules. So as an example, our simple rules for Pet Wellness Centre are: it has to be good for pet, good for customer, and good for the business. Now that seems super simple, but that's kind of the mantra that we live by. So if somebody's having to make a decision around something, they need to be able to tick all three of those boxes, and I will have their back. They know that they can go ahead and I will back them every day of the week. So it's from, simple things like, say, the receptionist who's just started and they're not sure of our policies, and somebody's come back in with their NextGuard Spectra and says, I got the wrong weight category for my dog, can I please change this? And say they don't know what our policy is. Are we allowed to refund these things? If I'm not around, I don't want people thinking, what decision would Kath make? I want them thinking, how would she make that decision? And that's where those simple rules come into play. So they can say, 1, is it good for the pet to exchange this? Well, of course it is. It's the right dose. Is it good for the customer? Absolutely, it's good for the customer. Is it good for the business? They have to know that that's a longer term answer. That's not like, good for today's takings. It's good for our reputation and our business long term. Yes, so then they can say, right, tick, 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 I'm just going to exchange it for the client and I'll talk to Kath about it later, knowing that they will be fully supported in the decision that they make. And that's from reception through to nursing, through to kennel hands, through to vets every time. as long as they can show that their decision was made based on believing it was in the best interest of all three of those groups, then we're good. And I think just touching on Alison's thing, sorry, ranting a little here, but vets leaving the industry, to me, this is going to a dark place, but I think it's very important that it's something we need to talk about. There's a very high suicide rate amongst vets. It's absolutely tragic, but it's very, very real. And I think that there's three really key factors at play there. One of them is just burnout, lifestyle burnout. Alison, you say people want to be able to go to netball, they want to be able to have a healthy lifestyle, but they're working ridiculous hours for very poor financial reward. And that's just burnout, plain and simple. The second is access to a peaceful ending. Vets euthanize pets and they see them get this peaceful ending, and they have access and means to be able to do that for themselves once they've gotten to the point where that's something they're thinking about. And the third thing that gets them to that point is the emotional blackmail that they get from clients. Sadly, that is just a fact. I mean, if you train someone goes to university for 5 years to learn how to save animals. That's what they can do. They can fix animals. And then you sit them in a room with a dying pet on the floor and a customer across the room from them saying, I can't pay you. Like, they know they can save that animal, but that person's saying, I can't pay you to do it. That situation is all kinds of awful. Like, what's a vet to do? It's not that they're just not going to get paid. They are personally paying for it if they own the business. Things don't happen for free. It's not something, there's costs involved. So every time a vet's faced with that scenario, they've just got this awful kind of, it's just this horrible place to be. And one of the things that I, as a non-vet who owns the business, can do is just take those conversations away. So my team knows that at any point in time, if they have that scenario, they do what they need to do to save the pet, and I have the conversation with the owner. I'm pleased to say most of the time you do meet people, you look them in the eye, you do a handshake, and they will pay you when and how they can. In 4 years so far of Pet Wellness Centre existing, I've had 4 times where the person hasn't paid. So once a year, I'm completely comfortable with that. I'm happy to take that on as a business expense. There's a lot of times where we will just look eye to eye, have a handshake, and they'll pay when they can. But the vet doesn't have to have that conversation. They don't have to make that horrible choice that they're faced with regards to saving or not saving an animal that they know they can help.
You bring up a really interesting thing, and I know, again, we're probably going slightly off tangent from where Aubrey thought we were going, but I think it's a really important point Cathy just made. The situation we're in now, it's one that's been there under the radar for quite a while, and now it's there front and centre, and people are going, like, what do we do about this? What do we do about this fragility in the profession that means people find the easier way out than staying is to go? What does that mean? And it's happened to all of us. And this year, a student I taught, sadly, he made that decision, a young chap, beginning of his career, a couple of years qualified. And you just think, how does that, and I find, bizarrely, I helped him with his CV, and I found it on my laptop the other day, and it was like, when you clear out your laptop, I just saw his CV, and it was just like, oh God, here we go again. And you just think, how have we got to this point, and why are we not moving forward from it? And there's so many layers to this, and I get that, and I'm no expert, and there are many more learned people out there who know and understand the journey from I'm not feeling great to now is the day to end it. But as a profession, I think one thing Cathy just said is that part of that is there's a conversation about doing the right thing as a clinician is I know I can save a patient, and the owner not being able to furnish the fees to make that happen. And that then becomes a focal point for there to be a disagreement or a misunderstanding or an awful situation. And Cathy's got her way around it, which is great. But I think it is the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room about this profession is that we haven't got yet a revenue cycle and a fee model that works for most people most of the time, because we're still a pay-as-you-go profession, and we're not into subscription models yet. And dentistry have had subscription monthly pay me, I don't know, $50, $60, $100 a month and come and have your teeth drilled every day if you like, that kind of, like, that's what I want to do in my day, go to the dentist, have my teeth drilled. But other healthcare service delivery models have looked at the revenue flow in a different way, from pay-as-you-go through to a monthly subscription of some prescription. And it's starting to happen now in veterinary medicine. And imagine if it was just like, you know, you're a member of our practice, and to be a member, you pay. And then there isn't this conversation. We take away one of the incidents, and it's rare. Once a year, Cathy, you were saying there that this is a thing that becomes a real thing to you as a business owner. That's pro bono, goodwill, PR, suck it up, figure it out, isn't it? It's kind of, you manage that. But I think we've got to face into some point that there's a bit at the heart of this, which is people don't get paid enough for the work that they do. We don't know how to get money from a client when a fee is owed, because for some people, if you say to me today, right, you know, your dog needs, you know, $10,000 of surgery, and the average punter on the street's going, mate, I've got $400 in the bank. Centrelink comes in next week, mate, I ain't got it. Well, that's real. That's not them saying I'm playing the game. That's, some people are on a subsistence income. That bill is way out. I think we have a revenue model issue in the profession that means we as colleagues suffer because the pay isn't and conditions aren't there. But clients suffer as well because we have to pay in the moment rather than saying it's an over time thing. And if you have regularity of cash, then your spike in your fee model would be slightly different. I think we've got a big problem with our revenue model.
Well, I wonder if you know, it's definitely the revenue model, but are we preparing our young veterinarians? Are we preparing them emotionally for that? Let me, you know, put it this way, Kath, with what you've just said with regards to euthanasia, we are one of those few professions, I think, where you know, at your 9 o'clock appointment, you need to be overjoyed and you know, perky because, you know, you're vaccinating a puppy that's just joined the family, whereas half an hour later, you're going to be faced by somebody who's saying goodbye to a lifelong friend, followed after that by, you know, an emergency. So it's an emotional roller coaster every day at work. And I wonder if we as a profession, you know, asking you coming from outside the profession, being part of our profession now, if we are, you know, prepared for that in our training.
Look, I call it emotional gymnastics, and I think that vets and vet nurses are extraordinary for the way that they do that. I mean, they could be giving someone the news that their beloved companion's about to die. They could have just lost a patient on the table in surgery. They could have just put down a pet that they've known for 15 years, and then they turn around and there's a new puppy in the waiting room, and it's like, yeah, this is the greatest thing ever. And it's like, it is emotional gymnastics. It's like flipping from one thing to the next to the next, and I'm constantly in awe of the way that they do it. But you're completely right in that we need to, I'm not just about preparing the students more. I honestly think vet students are burnt out by the time they finish their degree at this point. I'm not sure how much more we load onto them, but I think we've got to make sure we've got the support mechanisms around the team, and team culture and belonging that you just talked about are so important for that. Having that debrief amongst friends where you get a chance to talk about the fact that, wow, that was tough. That really hurt. I feel like that could have been different or whatever. But I had a really interesting conversation. We've just started a pet loss support group for clients who have lost their pet, because I'm talking with a psychologist, and he's helping me with this. And he's saying that, you know, the loss of a human is painful and extraordinary, but there's a lot of support mechanisms around that. You know, you are allowed to take some time off work. You have a funeral. People expect you to be upset. They reach out to you. They provide you food. They give you gifts. They check in, make sure you're okay. But when you lose a pet, you know, the other pet loving people understand, but you're not expected to be allowed to have some time off work. You know, it's just a dog. What are you talking about? People aren't reaching out to you in a month's time to make sure you're okay. You don't get to have a funeral. You know, there's no support mechanisms around the grief that's involved with losing that beloved friend. So we've started this pet loss support group. But this psychologist, I was having a chat to him, and he's like, well, hang on a second. Why don't you do this for your team? Like, if you were a paramedic or you're a doctor or you're a nurse and you lose a patient on the table, yeah, there's going to counsellors are going to be there. You know, you're going to have some sort of formal debrief process. You're going to be offered counselling. You're going to have some, you know, some sort of mechanism around helping you deal with the grief and the trauma of what you've just experienced. But we expect vets and vet nurses to do this every day of the week without any sort of structure or formalised counselling process behind them. And that's a mistake. That's a big gaping hole in the profession.
So
as far as
we expected to just get on with it.
Could I just close the loop on what Cathy just said there? Because I think, and Cathy and we have talked for hours about these kind of things, and it's great to hear what you're doing. Just as an aside, I'm working with a practice, lovely practice, a very young practice, less than 2 years old, and they have a resident counsellor on the payroll, on their P&L. There's a cost line that says once a fortnight, the person comes into our building and sits in that room, and you're all allocated in that week an hour with the counsellor. I don't care what you talk about. I don't need to know what you talk about, but you come out of what you're doing and you go sit and talk to them.
That is putting people first.
That is on, because I get to see the P&L and I sit at their board meeting and help them make these decisions. And it's on there, and it's a monthly line. And this person comes in, everybody is allocated their time, and they have to go and sit with them. If they just sit and talk about what they had for dinner last night, it doesn't matter. It's not if you need to go and see. And that, I think, is the key, that what Cathy's trying to get to here is that this isn't, oh, we've got one if you need one, but people aren't going to fess up and say, I need a counsellor. They're not going to say that in front of, you know, the mask that we wear. This is your allocated slot is, and you will go and talk to them. And you will do that every couple of weeks. And it just is. And I wonder whether we engineer the environment that says we make it better for the few who really, really need this by making it better for all that don't realise they do as well, by structurally putting in as an investment in our people. And it's in the cost of people line on that P&L. You know, you've got your cost of goods, your cost of business, your cost of people, and that's just a line, and every month it's in there. And we say, this is what we do. And we can change the world when we change what we do. And I think this is an area where we just need a few brave folks to say, do you know what, bugger it. We're doing it this way. But there's some really systemic, structural stuff going on here, and it takes a few brave souls to say it's different. But we do have regulators and universities that could make it better too. So there are some things that we can just say, this is how it is now. We could mandate that this is how it is now. And for me, young clinicians leaving uni, going straight into first opinion practice without that kind of bridging experience, for me, like the medics have a bridging year. You know, they leave medical school and then they go into foundation year 1 and 2. We have to learn from other medical sectors that say you don't just drop them in it. You know, and my generation were dropped in it, and look what happened. You know, but the world is a different place now. There are different overwhelming pressures and needs to kind of just get through a day. And I think we have to do something and engineer a different framework for this. And our regulators and universities have a responsibility. Our employers have a responsibility. I'm
going to move on to, because it actually fits in with what we were just discussing now, and that is that it is true that job seekers in our profession are either looking for their first job, or they are looking for their next job, their better job. And, many people talk about and write about the so-called recruitment and retention problem, which in my mind is a people problem. Should we concentrate on retaining people, or why not concentrate on being the best place to be from?
Yeah, I'm 100% all about embracing people leaving, because it's horses for courses, like people do grow, and they do. In what I'm focused on is creating an environment where that person is able to grow, improve, be the best that they can be within that environment that I create. And at the point where their values are no longer aligned, or their needs are no longer satisfied, then I am also going to happily help them to move on to their next big thing, because I don't believe in trying to in golden handcuffs. I don't believe in trying to force people to stay where they don't want to be. It's not good for anyone. It's not good for them. It's not good for the business. It's not good for the clients or the patients. So I employ people knowing that they're a good fit for us, hoping that we can provide some growth and learning for them along the way. There's a definite hope that some of them will just work for Pet Wellness Centre forever, but but the reality is at some point something's going to change. And I definitely do want people who do walk away from our centre to be ambassadors for us, 100%. That was some of the best time of my life. I learned so much there. We still have nurses who've moved interstate, engaged with our social media and talking about their memories of having been part of Pet Wellness Centre. So yeah, and vets as well. I'm just about to hire a superstar, a young superstar, 3 years out grad who is probably going to become a specialist at some point, and it might be that as we grow Pet Wellness Centre, we grow more locations and we grow our business, we might have a place where she can become that within our organisation, but we might not. And I want her to be the superstar that she should be and do it in a way where she feels she's satisfying all of her why. And if that's not with us, then that's not with us. My main focus is ensuring that whilst people are with us, they're happy, they're satisfied, they're contributing to the team, they're having a good time, and they're not burning out or starting to think that they want to leave this profession that they were so passionate about when they first went into school. So, yep, I'm 100% for embracing people leaving.
Alison, do you think we should, is it a retention problem? Should we really try and keep people for as long as possible? Because people grow, and surely I wouldn't want to go and work, as my first job, for example, even second or third, and say, well, this is what I'm going to do for the next 20 to 40 years.
Again, we have to look at the reality of life. If we go back to my mother's generation, the idea of what you did for work, then family came along and that was the end of your working career, because it was, my mother was sacked for being pregnant. That's just kind of how it was then. Mm-hmm. For my generation, we, it's like, get a good job, be set up for life. It's like, yeah, I tried that. Didn't really work for me, but there was an expectation of it would be a job for life. So everyone got the little trinket carriage clock after 30 years. And so, today, no chance. We're in a digitally connected small world where people can be, having a life, maybe having 3 or 4 careers at the same time, portfolio employment. And most of my team work across, they have their main job, and then we have a group of flexi workers who work for us and do maybe 1 or 2 other things. Maybe they teach, maybe they work in practice, maybe they have their own business, but they do stuff for us as well. And that portfolio management is, nobody today, I would put a $5 bill on that. Anyone who's taken their first job today will not be in that same job in 2 or 3 years' time. It's just not how the world of employment works. So to make an ambition that, we want 100% retention of our team members in 5 years, it's like, well, you're just setting yourself up for utter failure and distress. People will come and people will go. People move. People get partners. People change. Opportunities pop up. I mean, someone said, hey, we've got a really good job for you, working in Hong Kong, and you can be, and you go, wow, I've got to do that. Go travel, go see the world. The idea that we can keep people and that we would have a strategy for locking them to our business is to miss the point that people are happy when they're happy and they feel they wish to be there. If they are locked into being there, they become utterly miserable. I can't go because I'm being paid too much. I can't go because I will lose my benefits package. I can't go because I will lose my pension contribution. That makes people bitter and twisted. I was one of them. That's why I stayed at Mars for 2 years longer than I should have done. I daren't leave because I was paid so much. So you resent that. I'm locked, I'm trapped. So rather than going, I want everybody to stay, why not say, I want everyone who is here to be happy to be here and to be a brand ambassador for my business. And this concept of employer of choice is, I spent 2 years there. It was utterly brilliant. If you get the chance, work there too. And you become this word of mouth, you know, brand advocacy bubble. And the truth is told word of mouth to word, person to person. You forget all your job ads and your nonsense about the size of your endoscope, because that's not what people talk about. They talk about, was it a good place to work?
Absolutely.
You know? Retention is just a misnomer.
It's what people say. It's not what we say about ourselves, a company. It's not what we say about ourselves. That doesn't matter that much anymore. There's not a lot of weight. You know, that doesn't carry a lot of weight. It is what
there isn't any way, Aubrey. There isn't any way. Us projecting we're a great place to work when everyone who's worked there says it stinks. There's a position there that just says what the culture is. And there are practices who have that. They're projecting we're glorious. Yet meanwhile, on all of the websites and the forums, it's like don't touch them with a barge pole. You've got a cultural issue if you think you can shout we're great. It stinks of a real paternalistic attitude of, yes, we're great. Look how good we are. It's like, oh mate, come on, everyone thinks you suck. You know, don't work then.
Well, that brings me to the next point, which again fits quite nicely.
I got edited, won't it?
and that is, you know, it is finding the best fit, finding culture. But Kath, what does that actually mean? And you know, things have changed. You know, we are more digitally advanced. You know, we've progressed. Why is it then find the best fit by using what I think are things that belong in the industrial era, and that is the CV, where you basically take your rock star points, put it in a list, and have somebody take 7 seconds sometimes to make a decision whether they're going to interview or not, and then there's the interview. Do you think that there's still a place for the CV and the interview?
Yeah, so we for now yes, but only because I think we're a little behind. So we've got a company that works in the same complex as Pet Wellness Centre. They're called Kind. It's a funky tech startup. They're disrupting the way that people access aged and disability care services. And the guy who runs it, Mikey, is a good friend of mine, and he doesn't do anything remotely like a CV and an interview when he's looking to find people. He asks people to send a video of themselves. You know, they're quite funky and techie, and it's amazing, and they've got a great culture and they attract amazing people. I don't think we're quite there yet with vets. I mean, if you look at the personality type of a veterinarian, quite often some of the best vets that I know would absolutely die if I stick a camera in their face. You know, some of our vets still won't let me put them on social media, but they're brilliant. They're brilliant in a room with the customer, with the client, with the patient. So I would hate to lose the opportunity to hire those people by creating a hiring method that would alienate them and make them want to not want to. Red wine. I'd hate to lose those people by creating a mechanism that they weren't comfortable with. I think that you've got to really go broader. So yes, you can still ask for CVs. The cover letter, the way people give a CV, always tells me a lot more about the person than the actual CV itself. Interviews, yes, we still do them. I just need to meet someone face to face, have a chat to them. It's very informal kind of process. It's not a set of structured questions, my interviews. The other thing we do is we do trial days. So if we think we like someone, we get them in and they do a day with the team, because you just don't know someone until you actually spend a day with them under pressure, and also the team. Like you've got to make sure that they're going to fit in this environment. The team needs to like them. They need to like us. It's a trial for them as much as it is for us. If we are not what they thought we were, or they don't like the environment on that day, then I don't want them to come and work for us. So I'm a big fan of the trial day. I think that works out well.
I think what Kath's doing is great, because instead of the interview, have an audition where me, the job seeker, audition you, the employer, and the employer auditions me, the job seeker, within the team.
Do you know what? This is I think as a debate, this is one of those things which, the fact we're talking about it, hopefully will instigate the audience that tune into this to actually stop and think, when did we as a practice stop and think about how we recruit, what messages we're projecting to people who may wish to apply to a job when we have one? Because that whole feeling of oh God, we need to employ a vet. Oh God, we need a nurse. It's a reactive situation for most practices. It's like, oh God, we've got to advertise. Rather than going, hang on, we'll always be recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
In the same way that you're always recruiting clients. So your strategy on attracting clients, your strategy on being the first choice of practice in town for the people with pets, that strategy of always on, always recruiting, always here. So your constant background noise is, it's a great place to take a dog. It's a great place to take a cat. It isn't a great place to take a rabbit in Queensland, but that's a different story. But
Big fun.
long-eared guinea pigs. And so that whole thing around, we're always recruiting clients because we're sending, this is how we do it here. This is what we do. This is what we believe. This is why it works. And here's somebody we saw yesterday. And this is a happy day or not. This is a sad day. We're always on, always, always recruiting our clients. And yet recruitment of colleagues is like, oh shit, we need a colleague. It's like, what should we do? Oh, stick an ad in. We've got a big endoscope. It hasn't been thought through. And if one thing happens when people listen to this, they actually stop and take a strategic moment and go, right, okay, we struggle to recruit. Why is that? Why do people not want to come here? Or do they know you're there? Can they find you? What messages are you portraying? What did the last people that left say about you? Come on, let's get to the real nub of the issue. And it's not about the advert or the job placement or the process. It's about the word on the street, mate, is you're not a good place to work. So before you worry about where you put these comms, fix what it's like here. And for me, it's always recruiting. It's like always having a simple button on your website, come and visit us. We're always looking for, might not be today, might not be tomorrow, but soon we might need a vet or a nurse or a customer service person. If you're interested, come and have an experience day. We're missing the point of recruitment. You should never recruit in haste because you end up with a bomb steer. And that's what people get. They recruit because they need somebody with a pulse and they get the wrong gig. And that means we have to take a strategic view. And whether it's an ad or it doesn't really matter. It's the reality is them being in face to face with you going, I like it, I don't like it. And that's a bit that we can build on a daily basis. And that starts with our student placements. So we mustn't underestimate the importance of our student placements. We're building reputation with our student body, our future colleagues.
Well,
I don't know whether that was the answer to the question you asked, but it was an answer to a question.
No, that's perfect. So we've come to the end of the hour, but it went so quick. And we've talked about psychological.
Oh, we haven't got going yet.
We've talked about so many different things, and I'm truly grateful for your time and for it was a very deep, in-depth rather discussion. So I would like to say thank you, and then give you both the opportunity to just tell the GuavaVet Find Remarkable viewers where they can find you or learn more about you. Kath, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so find us. We're on Facebook and Instagram, Pet Wellness Centres in beautiful Burleigh Heads on the Gold Coast. If you are a vet and you're watching this and you think you might come and live in paradise and work for a really great team, then by all means get in touch. We do have growth plans. So as Alison said, we are constantly recruiting. We're always looking towards the future to just, it's like when you find the right people, you just grab them, no matter whether it fits in your P&L right now or not. So yeah, you can find us. You can find me. Actually, don't follow me on Twitter. I tend to rant a bit about politics. You're probably not interested in that. But yeah, our social. I'm really interested in your conversation next week, actually, for your next vlog with the social media thing, because we do social media a little bit differently. But yeah, if you want to know what we are doing today, then look on our socials and you will see real-time live action of what's happening at Pet Wellness Centre.
Well, thank you. It was great meeting you, and thank you very much for your time. Alison, now, you I know well, but you're a mentor to me. You've helped me in many, many different ways. So, I'm definitely one of the big ambassadors and advocates for what you do. But you do many things. So tell us where people who would like to get connected and see what you do, where they can find you, and conferences and talks.
Well, thank you. Yes, I have known you a long time, Aubrey, and we have we've had some very robust conversations, and that's what a mentor should do. So for those of you who we haven't met yet, then certainly check out Onswitch, Onswitch. Onswitch. There isn't an off switch, so Onswitch, and you'll find that. Just Google that, you'll find us. Onswitch.co.uk and Onswitch Australia.com. And then on Facebook, Twitter, I rant as well, Cathy, actually. I have a bit of a rant, but it's a different audience. So Twitterati are political bodies that
I follow you both.
Don't need a poke on Twitter, that lot. So what we do is we're here to inspire change. Create customer-centered practice so pets, horses and livestock receive best care. So regardless of your species, whether you're primary care, referral, home care, doesn't matter, supply side, is you've got to understand that piece, which is that customer journey and that customer touch point, and find those smallest of moments where you can make it better for everybody's journey, whether that's team or customer or colleague. So we can help you do that. And I would certainly check out the Customer Experience Congress series. And Cathy has spoken last year and the previous year. And if you want to hear Cathy talk a lot more about the philosophy of the Pet Wellness Centre and everything that goes into that, some really powerful stuff in there. So if you go to Onswitch, you'll find the CX Congress is certainly worth something. Just a non-clinical education, which is just, we have to, for me, 50% of your education budget, 50% clinical, 50% non-clinical, because it's that bit that enables the clinical magic to happen. So,
well, yeah, I'll put the links in the show notes for you both. Thank you very much. This is the GuavaVet Find Remarkable vlog, and as always, I found two remarkable people. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you.